Hey y'all, welcome back. Today, I hope y'all are doing good. This is a very, I don't want to say super serious reading, but it's a reading for a pretty tragic case that's come out. Already a card came out. It's just been kind of dominating people's attentions, maybe not for the right reasons, but there's kind of like a new mystery that unravels about this case every day, and that is the disappearance and now discovery of the body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, 15-year-old girl, in a Tesla. I think it was rented by David Anthony Burke. He just goes by David D4vd, but he's I think a streamer and a music, like a pop star, an alt pop star, and he's only 20 years old. And y'all, this case has really disturbed me for numerous reasons, but Celeste went missing in April of 2024, and she wasn't found until September of this year. So that's a year and a half this girl was just unaccounted for. There had been reports that her family had been getting $10,000 payments on the regular from David, and so she had been, there's a really sad video of the last time that she was ever seen where she's arguing, she seems drunk and she's arguing with a neighbor, and this is a girl who was 15 when she was pronounced dead just because they found her, but killed at 14 years old, more likely than not by this David guy and by just people surrounding him. And so it's very sad. Very, very sad, very disturbing, and a huge just loss for people. But the energy, and it's already coming through, already kind of making me a little sick. That's why it's harder to do readings like this, because the energy is just intense. But let me plug in this computer so it doesn't die. But we have, so we're going to start with some of the astrological information about Celeste. Celeste is born on the 8th of September. She's born on the 7th of September in 2010 in Lake Elsinore, California, close to LA, like the outskirts of LA. And she's a Virgo sun, but she has a Jupiter in Aries. And so Jupiter in Aries, that's a very childlike type of trust, y'all. That is, yeah, Celeste was born September 7th, but she was found September 8th, which also seems very ritualistic. But Jupiter in Aries is a childlike trust. It's seeing the best in people almost to a fault. And a lot of her life really was dictated, by the men in her life with that Jupiter in Aries. The masculine presence very much dominated her life and her psyche. Same thing with Mars in Libra. This is her drawing and just attracting very forceful, aggressive, or difficult people, violent people to her energy. And love and violence have a strong link here for the Mars and Libra people. Not always. There's all in astrology, and we're gonna pull cards and stuff too, y'all. But always when we're dealing with astrology, there's a million ways that something can manifest. And this is just one manifestation of the many ways that these placements can happen. But she also has Mars trining Neptune. So she is very vulnerable to kind of violent manipulations, and Venus trining Neptune as well. So this is also an indication of a masculine and feminine parent. So either both parents or just either leading forces in her life, introducing her to drugs, either because they were addicted or because they just saw these things a certain way, but she got hooked on, not even necessarily hooked on, because it's like it's not even so much about her reaction, but it's about having both the masculine and feminine leadership roles who were on drugs and let her know, oh, it's okay to do these things from a very, very, very young age. She has Venus conjunct Mars as well. And sometimes these are people, this is a soul that can be very forgiving to the point where it's a fault. And it's similar to her Jupiter in Aries, just that really, the naivete that comes with just forgiving, always seeing the best in people. She also has North Node squaring Saturn, and that's a harsh aspect for the forward-facing kind of karmic dragon of the chart, opposing the planet that rules time. She's very much somebody who knew from a young age that she wouldn't be here long. I don't know if she personally knew that, but her soul incarnated to only be in this dimension for a very short period of time. North Node is in conjunction to Pluto as well, and these are just people who are transformed by touching the shadow aspect. So she's surrounded very much by dark-sided, energetic people who are dictating a lot of her life, who are on drugs, and so it makes sense that when she meets somebody, that someone similar to David, who's just manipulative and controlling, that there's a weakness there for these type of people because she's so used to kind of being faced with that codependency and touching just the darkness. She's comfortable touching the darkness, and, you know, her soul eventually disappeared into it. But then we have David Anthony Burke, which I've heard, I mean, people have reported that they met when she was as young as 10 and he was 15, which is very scary and alarming. But he's born on the 28th of March, 2005. And it always, y'all, hearing like people born in 2005 and 2010 as someone born in the 90s, I'm like, he has the Sun sextiling Mars, so he's kind of defined by his egoic actions. Yeah, he's really just like, he's all about whatever the last victory was. Very short-tempered, moon squaring Mars, very, very, very emotionally aggressive, very. And the moon is in Scorpio too. So this is a very fragile, emotionally unstable, aggressive person. And he has songs too that talk about that stuff. There's a song called Romantic Homicide. So there's literally the human personification of the manifestation of domestic violence is so, so strong in this. And he has Mercury in Aries too. So just like very violent speaker and a verbal abuser, probably from the time he was very young. With Venus in Aries, just a very controlled, imagine the most fragile man you can. And I mean, I say this, it could obviously be a woman too, but in this case, he is a man. Just the most controlled, egoic, loving experience. And you know, it's interesting too, because Venus in Aries being the childlike, in this instance, childlike energy, it actually manifested as him being pedophilic, being 15 and going after a 10-year-old. But the thing about this is that as a Venus in Aries, the manipulation isn't just attraction to children. That's, of course, a big component of it. But it's also that he's so just a shred of a person and insecure that he needed someone who he could control completely. So it was either going to be the biggest pick-me-shay you've ever met or a literal child. Which is often the case with grooming, you know? It's like a power thing to where a lot of these people want a victim. They don't want a partner, they don't want an equal, they want a victim. And so that Venus in Aries for him is just like, the most controlled, egoic, and fragile mentality when it comes to relationships. And keep in mind, I'm only referring to this as a relationship because because of how one relates to the other. I don't view it as a relationship when it's a child who is groomed at all, but because they are in relation, I'll say relationship. We also have Jupiter in Libra. This is somebody who just needs a muse, and they kind of understand and grow through partnership. But because specifically, he has all these energies of someone who can't really partner healthily. He's stunted because that Jupiter in Libra needs to grow through partnership, but it can't function. He can't function in relationship. So there's that push-pull there. And with the Lilith in Cancer, huge mother issues, or just issues with women in general, some kind of issue in the nurturing. Beep, beep. Synastry-wise, her Mars is square his Saturn. So they're drawn to each other immediately for lessons that they both need to learn. If her Mercury in Virgo is opposing his Uranus in Pisces. And this is someone who is jealous of his own muse, despite her literally being a child. Threatened by her, despite his fame. And that, I mean, I think the most telling thing for me was just the fact that they have, when you do their synastry chart, and there's no times for the birth chart, so it's a little bit different. But when you look up their love compatibility, and already I'm getting so warm. There's so much Mars energy in the connection too. But already they have 0 loving and tender aspects. So you can see, like, there was no softness or regard for her. But they have 9 conflict aspects, which I find to be astounding. But let's go to the cards now. These things have been popping out. I've already meditated. I've given Celeste permission to come through. Already marriage and wedding is striking to me because this was similar too in the John Bonet reading, but there's that idea of a child bride, like something he's telling her that he's going to marry her. He's telling her that he's going to marry her and kind of using that as a carrot of control. So there's a lot of like, oh, well, I'll marry you. I'll treat you right. Wait till you're 18 and we can get married. He has a song talking about like waiting 7 more years for her. But I think that was the biggest thing, was that he was using the marriage as a carrot on a stick to control her. So it's a very big, it's a thematically very big thing, this marriage. Yeah. Never fails. Anytime there's a crazy energy like this that I let in, it just makes me sick. We have the mountains here too. And so the fire and the mountains and the road, I think, is interesting because Celeste had already been missing for a long time by the time that fire last year at the top of the year in LA happened. So she might have been... It might have been during even that time that something happened to her. He was keeping her up somewhere in the mountains. But she's in like Elsinore too, so it's near some mountains, but definitely sense that fire energy. And I sense that she was really... I don't know that she was burned. I think they tried to burn some of her things. But she was also found because they left the car on the road. Let's see what else we have. Yep. He's known her since she's a kid. And that Wow. So his power over her had so much to do with the fact that he met her when she was 10 years old, and it shaped the way she looked at him. But because she was getting older, she was kind of trying to see through it. And this, for somebody who is very fragile, like he talked about marrying her. I think there were reports of her texting a friend about how he was sexual with her. So, you know, if he's being inappropriate, having her first sexual experience with her when she's underage, and he's tying that. I think there was some other things in the music video about a wedding, but that he's threatened, and part of the reason they did this was because she was either threatening to leave and tell somebody, or she was just threatening to leave, period. And that was so threatening to him as someone who saw himself as her everything, the star that he kind of played in her life, and that kind of star role. He didn't want to be left. And because she's so young, it's like she was wanting to hit the road. And this completely lit him on fire, livid. But there's an argument here, and even it could have happened somewhere remote too. I'm hearing it happen somewhere remote, kind of in a mountainous region where they did it, and they might have driven back down with her. But it's because she was threatening to leave him, reveal things about their relationship, or just not marry him like they had promised. And it's so weird to think they're both so young. There's so much life left to live, but what else do we have here? Drinking, lots of underage drinking. Lots of giving her alcohol. And it's interesting because he has that Scorpio moon, so it's like all his emotions here. But there's substances. He's also the first one to give her a substance or get her intoxicated too with this. And also could be her going sober, threatening to go to rehab as well. But she didn't want to, whatever they had been doing, she didn't want to do anymore. Even friends. She's making friends, having a better support system, and she didn't want to depend on him anymore. Sorry, y'all, I got a text. I didn't mean for my eyes to be all crazy. What else do we have? Yeah, she was closing off to him. Things were getting much more difficult, but she was finally seeing him in that true light. She's seeing him in that truer light. And I think this, for some reason, I hear around Pisces season of last year, because she'd been missing since then. But something happened in Pisces season of last year. And just her threatening to kind of leave and move on really just threatened him. But she wasn't, even to be so much younger, that dynamic was disappearing. And always kind of under a substance. But as she kind of wanted to sober up and get over that, he was trying to keep her drunk with this Pisces card, keep her under the substance, but he was losing control over her. It was no longer this dynamic of the child and the older person. She had more support from friends. And there's just a threat. That's the and again, like, I don't mean to refer to this as a relationship, but he was losing control of her. He was losing control of her. And we mentioned at the top that it's just the most, he chose her because of the control he had over her. But things were just getting more difficult. He didn't have emotional control of her anymore. And she was just like kind of unimpressed after having been around that stuff for a while, even though she was young. Because she grew up fast, she wasn't impressed with him anymore. What else do we have of this? I can also do a part 2 for this, y'all, but what else do we have? Were there other people involved? What else don't we know? Very sad. I know her energy is kind of saddened by the idea that there's not... And the police may be quiet because I believe there's a gag order, but there's just not that level of justice for her, and there's not that level of respect for what happened to her. Similar to the Justice card in the tarot, there's just a severe lack of justice here. And remember, y'all, child marriage. So there's this idea that he was trying to marry her, trying to do something, trying to keep her on the road. But there was no... And that's why. That's another reason why he got her pregnant. And wanted to get rid of her because she didn't want to get rid of the child. And he didn't want her to run away. It's literally a, if I can't have you, nobody can. But this here too, another child card. And you see how this card, she's kind of holding that belly. I really do think that she was pregnant. Especially if you guys could literally see how I feel right now. It's coming through so strongly. Just that sickness, almost like a morning sickness. Oh my gosh. Let's take these two. Oh my goodness. Yeah, almost like a morning sickness. Yep, that was the cleanup. For his actions, he was finally going to get exposed. Exposed for getting her pregnant. So he had to get rid. And we know, I mean, it's pretty much known, I feel like, by the masses that he was a fake and a fraud. He was giving her money. Child and caregiver. I really think that she was going to have his baby. See? Everything points to him bribing her with marriage, her wanting to leave, bribing her with money. But you know what? He also didn't want to be the caregiver to a child. And I don't know if they had maybe terminated a pregnancy before or what have you, but I really do sense there is a baby involved. He did not want to be caregiver to a child. And there may have been more than one person he was seeing. And if he is seeing more than one person, then that person may have been an accomplice in this. Yeah, she was about to go. She was about to hit the road, y'all. Where is this? She was about to hit the road. It was too much for his ego. She said, I'll take care of the child myself. He doesn't want to be a caregiver to a child. And this incited all the fire within him to do what he did. I need to disconnect from this energy, y'all. This has been an interesting one. If you want a part 2 for this, I'm happy to do it. Comment, like, subscribe, share, book a personal reading. I love y'all so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.